Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Grief Let's Talk About It podcast. You guys know who it is. This is Tony Lynch. I am the host of this podcast, and yes, we are your number one podcast for bringing you conversations around death, dying, and grief, and all the messiness that comes in between it. But some amazing people who not only walk the walk but talk the talk, and out here doing amazing things, helping make ripples in people's lives, changing the way that they heal one heartbeat at a time. Now, before I bring on the next guest, I would like to say that if this is your first time tuning in, do me a favor, head on over to their YouTube channel, hit that subscribe button, hit that bell notification so you'll be notified every time that we drop a new episode. But most importantly, this is a live stream. So please, if you have any questions or comments, put them in the comment section. We'll be sure to answer them as we go. Now, before I bring her up here, one last thing. This is for educational purposes only. Now, without further ado, guys, help me welcome my next guest, Michelle Manley, to the show. Michelle, how you doing?
Doing well. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Now, before we get started, introduce yourself to the audience. Tell people who you are, where you're from, and about the work that you do.
Yes, I'm Michelle Manley. I am located in New Bedford, Massachusetts, a lovely seacoast town with a great abolitionist history. So I have a great affection for my city. Um, I am a soma-spiritual mentor, Reiki Master Teacher, and a few more healing modalities in there. Basically, I help people connect with their divinity, both within them and without them, external, by connecting with their bodies, by getting very still. I help somatic embodiment is a huge piece of my work. Learning to sit with your emotions is such a key piece of my work. And that's the 2-second version of me.
No, I love it because I'm a firm believer in having people sit with their emotions, especially men, since it's such a foreign thing for us to not be expressive in those different areas. You know, part of my journey was learning how to not only articulate but sit with them, and I just start to identify what they truly were. And kind of kind of be honest with them, right? Not everything was anger, not everything was, was the obvious what people may think. There was something a little bit more different, right?
Yeah.
And that is truly important when it definitely when it comes down to healing in a lot of ways. It's being honest with your emotions, learning how to sit with them, and not only sitting with them, but learning how to express them as well.
Yeah. So key.
Yeah. Now, how did you get into this type of work?
It has been a long and circuitous healing journey for me. A lot of loss. I lost my father at 14. He was 42 years old, had a massive heart attack one day, came out of nowhere. That kind of launched me on my healing journey.
Mhm.
It was circuitous. I again lost a lot of family members. I was the one, I lived with my grandfather, who was just the light of my life, and I was the one that found him deceased when I was about 26. I went into a cult. I went into a bad marriage. I was looking for answers. I wanted to know what happened. I wanted to understand life and death. Um, Coming out of my marriage, I reclaimed who I was. I got back on my healing journey. I became a Reiki master. I learned to sit with my emotions. In the past few years, and I'm grateful I did this, because in the past few years, since 2018, I've lost both parents, my soul dog, who was my heart, and 5 close friends. So grief has become a huge, again, a big piece of my journey, as
Right.
it was when I was younger.
Excuse me. Now, wow, that is, I mean, when you were saying that, the only thing I can remember, or think of was the multitude of clubs that you joined. Not willingly, right? Because no
Hmm.
one wakes up and says, I want to be a part of this and I want to be a
Yep.
part of that. What was the grief journey like for you?
I ran from it. I ran and stuffed for many, many years. I ostensibly processed it. I came to terms with it on the surface.
Hmm.
I was able to function, but I had developed fibromyalgia. I developed autoimmune
Mm,
disorders. I am confident that a big piece of my health issues, which were legendary, were absolutely due to my stuffing the emotions around grief. I just couldn't look with it, couldn't deal with it. Um, it wasn't until the past well, 5 or 6 years really that I've been able to sit with it and wrestle and see how she has truly, and I always think of death as a she. I don't know why, but I always think of her as a she. She has truly been my greatest teacher, and particularly these last 5 years. You know,
Yeah,
she's stripped away so much of the veneer and the protections and the face you put out in the world. And she's like, no, who are you? You know, who are you in the
yeah.
darkest of moments of your life? Who are you? And so that's been, yeah, it's been transformative, is the one word I would say to describe my grief journey. It's been transformative.
I totally agree. You and I talked for a while when
Yeah.
we the first time that we met. Now, before we get started, I want to say thank you for tuning in. Coach Christine 42 over here on Instagram, coming in from Western Australia. Thank you for tuning in this morning. And Dear Psycho Pump says, "What is the biggest thing grief has taught you?"
Ooh, that all this external ends. The external goes away, but the internal, the love, the connection, the connection, it's no other word for it, the connection that transcends death. Like, I'm convinced of that. I may not understand all of what happens when we die, but I know that we don't lose those people we love.
Yeah. And I'm gonna piggyback off of what you just said. One of the biggest things that grief has ever taught me, and I'm still learning. I'm always going to be a student of grief.
Yeah.
I love everything about it, right? I love how it changes. I love how it just takes you through these different things. I love how it makes you surrender, but also makes you more aware and intelligent of your emotions, right? And how to express those things to other people. And it definitely has changed my whole mindset. And when I sit down and talk to people, I no longer hide from what I go through, or when people ask me, "Hey, is everything okay?" You know, I I would tell I'm going to tell you the truth, because I'd rather than assume that that what's going on with me. Because one thing about grief that I do understand, it's a connection point, right? It's a connection point for everything and everyone, no matter who you are, age that you are. It is the one thing we as human beings have in common and will
Yeah.
always have in common.
Yeah.
And, and I mean, the journey of grief is just this magnificent thing if you're willing to get rid of everything that you thought that you knew, right?
Yeah.
And be open to learning something so much bigger than what you thought. Now, What was what was your aha moment in your grief journey where you said, you know what, I need to make a change, um, and begin to allow this thing to manifest itself within yourself, but also within the world?
Oh, that's a great question. I think when my marriage broke down, I came to realize I didn't know how to process anger. I hadn't been allowed to in my marriage. It was an abusive marriage. It was not, I was not a full expression of self. And I realized that I needed to get a handle on my emotions because it was just coming out everywhere. I'm like, okay, this is not
Right.
helping anyone. I was just emoting inappropriately everywhere. And so then, I really get to the point, and when I became a Reiki master, that was huge because I had to learn to sit with energy. And sitting
Hmm.
with energy is emotions, emotions is energy. So learning to sit and be still, and the Reiki precepts, just for today, I will not anger. Well, that was a challenge. Like, okay.
Right.
Um, and when I started to just allow them in slowly but surely, I really realized that at the root of a lot of my maladaptations was grief. That's what, when I pulled it away and pulled it away and pulled it away, it was hurt, it was pain, it was longing, it was grief. And really learning to just sit with that. This would probably been, yeah, about the last 10 years, really learning to sit with it. And then when I realized that I had a gift for holding space for people as they went
Mm.
through this, that's when I was like, well, maybe it's time for me to bring this out into the world and hopefully, give back in a way that others had given to me. I had people that held the mirror up and supported me while I was going through it. And so it's an honor for me when I get to do that for other people.
Right. I love that. I love that servant's heart. Uh, We got a comment over here. Coach Christine 42 on Instagram. She says they say their mother lived with them for her last year on Earth. She passed away at 96 and a half in her bed after a stroke. I would wait, dreaming conversations with her often, very soothing.
Mm.
I know, right? Like that
Mm.
right there just took me to a place where I really understood that wave. Michelle, hey Michelle. Oh, that's okay, Michelle. Um, so it just took me there, which leads me to my next question with you. Do you feel that each relationship that you've had with those individuals that passed away, do you feel that their relationship with grief, or did it change your relationship with grief as you experienced the emotions?
It did. I think I had gotten to a point where, like, I know grief. I've been through a lot of grief. I was
Mhm.
comfortable. I'm like, I can handle grief. And both my parents died. They were older. I was able to process the grief. It was tragic, obviously, and sad, but I was able to. Then I got to a couple of friends that took their own lives, and one friend that was
Mhm.
murdered. And that brought a whole different realm of grief for me. I had to re-wrestle with it and come to terms with it all over again. Like, okay, this is a different kind of pain. This is a rawness mixed with anger, mixed with sadness, and how do you parse that all out? And it was really a matter of sitting with it, and a lot of journaling, a lot of grounding, a lot of just allowing. But I think that experience has given me a much fuller relationship with grief.
Mm. Do you feel that your relationship with grief has changed your outlook and the way that you see life?
Absolutely. I used to be very afraid of losing people. That was my greatest fear,
Mm.
especially my children. I mean, I had a diagnosed anxiety disorder around losing my children. It was bad. It's different now. Not that I would be like, "Yay, I'm glad this happened," but I know I could handle it. I know I could process it in a different way. I know I could sit with it. And knowing that you can come to terms with things takes some of the fear out of it. And also knowing that that love, that bond, it transcends. It's eternal.
Right. Now that leads me to my next question. Because, and this is where I speak from a little bit of experience. I've experienced, just like yourself, several losses, and I would say the most difficult one was losing a child. Now I don't take away from no one and what their experience is or anything like that. And this is just me looking at the relationships that I've had with those individuals, like my parents, my younger brother, friends, just like yourself, watching friends take their life, and watching friends who have passed away from homicides, overdoses, you name it. And I have a few friends that did pass away in their sleep from, you know, um, very extreme illnesses and things like that. And I would tell you, everyone has a different frequency or different energy that's associated with it, right? And it does change you, right? And it took me a long time, and I'm gonna pose this question to you after this one. Um, Christine 42 says, I have lost people to suicide and murder too. A whole other level of grief. I know, right? Yes, yes. Thank you so much. Um, and with that being said, I will say, and this is going to sound strange for a lot of people that have not gotten to this level yet, but there was a thanks that came along with that through the experience. One, I looked at the opportunity and the gift that it had given me that most people may not realize, right? Or may not even see. I got the chance to be a son. I got the chance to be a good friend. I had the chance to be a brother. I had the chance to be a cousin. I had the chance to be a father. And we oftentimes take those things for granted because our expectations of life. right? And sometimes it's really hard to see the blessings in that. It really is. It's hard to say thank you for what you have given me, because it's oh my God, it's a total, it's a deep hurt that comes along with that. I want to get your thoughts on that.
Oh my gosh, yeah, you're speaking my language now. I believe I'm not one of those people that says everything happens for a reason and, there's a greater purpose. I don't necessarily believe that. I do believe that chaos happens and bad things happen to everyone. What I do
Hmm.
believe, as you were saying, that there's an opportunity in everything. It's what are you going to take? What are you going to hold on to? Again, when you've
Mm,
been stripped bare, when you are at your lowest, and again, you've lost a child. I can't think of any grief that's greater than that. And to know that, all right, here I am. Here I'm broken low. My heart is open in a way that perhaps no other thing can get to it, can get it that open, that raw, that crushed. And
mm.
in that, there is such opportunity to rebuild yourself in a different way with perhaps a new softness or a new ability to make connections. There's just always a gift in there. You just got to search through the detritus to get to it.
That's very true. Coach Christine says life somehow becomes more vivid, and there is time to make that to make each day count. Sorry, I can't even speak this morning. And you know what? I definitely agree with that. I totally agree with that 100%. But it's what you do on those days, right? And look, although these multitude of experiences have changed me, I do understand the value in not making one above another, right?
Mm,
I may appreciate death a lot more because I have a better understanding.
yeah.
And I love grief because it has taken me along this path of opening me up and saying, "Hey, there's so much more to life if you're willing to see past the smoke screen." Like the energy like you said, the energy that's involved in that. I love the feeling of being able to be in someone's darkest moment, right? And sharing a little bit of me with that individual as they allow me to walk with them as they navigate it and things like that. And it's such an honor. I'm right there with you, Michelle. The honor and the privilege that people don't know how much, how like it's selfish for me to say this, but it is what it is what it is. I am selfish because I want to feel that. I want to be a part of that journey. I want to be there with you when life is bouncing you around, to let you know that you have a companion with you, you know. And I don't have to. I can sit off on the side,
Yeah.
and I'll show up when you're down and out and everything. I won't. I can't help you get up, but I could doggone make sure that you have a rag to wipe your head, and I'll let you know that whenever you need me, I'm always there. What is the biggest joy that grief has ever given you?
Ooh, um, that is a tough one. I think it's kind of going back to that comment. It does make life more vivid. It really does. When you come back, I just think of several long dark nights of the soul when I've lost someone where, people can walk with you, but there's that point where it's just you and your thoughts at 2 a.m. alone in your house and you're
Mm,
just sitting there with your grief. And when you open up and allow it in, it does allow a vibrancy to everything else as well. Is it Walt Whitman, I think, once said between choosing pain and nothing, he would always choose pain. And I think that's a beautiful way to approach life. Like I could choose to feel nothing. I could just cut myself off. I did it for years. Or I can stay raw and open and engaged and see the potentials and see what happens. And it does. It makes life
yeah.
so much more vibrant.
We have another comment over here. Christine 42 says, holding space for others. Not sure there's any selfishness there, more giving love. Totally agree with you. But there's a feeling that you get with that, right? So there's a yin and a yang to this. And you know, I do it because I love the feeling. I do, right? I love feeling the the connectivity or connection with those individuals. I love being able to be of service to other individuals. I do. And most people, and but also, I love what people can take from me out of my gift. And those that know me, and I want to get your thoughts on this, but those that know me understand that for me, you know, it's a gift and it's not mine, right? And it's an obligation to those that I serve. I get up every day, and sometimes I don't even sleep because I'm constantly thinking about who can I be of service to, which is the reason why I love doing the work that I do with men. Because one thing that I understood about men is that when grief hits them, it normally hits in the wee hours of the morning, the 2 a.m.s, the 3 a.m.s, the 4 a.m.s. Men don't talk around their families. They wait till they go to sleep, and then they choose to suffer in silence, right? Because it's a time where they can sit down and not have people feel as if they're being judged, or not have people, want to take away from what they experiences. And so a lot of times men will go for long drives, and unfortunately, sometimes those long drives, those men never come back from. I want to be the reason why they come back to go back home. Because for one, for me, I want you to go back to, I want you to be able to go back home a little bit more empty from your grief, right? And not have that hurt. Although you will carry a little bit of it with you, but I want to be the reason why you wake up the next day and kiss your wife. One, again, people take these things for granted. I don't have that. And so why would I not want someone else to experience that, right? It makes life it makes life a lot better, you know? Give me what are your thoughts on that? What are your thoughts? We have some amazing comments coming in on Instagram. Anybody on YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, if you guys have any comments or anything like that, please put them in the comment section.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. Being allowed in when someone rips off their mask and sits with their grief is truly an honor. And it's sacred ground. And I tread very like it's sacred ground. It's a temple to me, an energetic
Mm,
temple that I walk
right,
into. And my job is to serve and is to hold the tissue, to, stroke the head, energetically speaking, and truly just, and sometimes physically, and truly just be there, holding up a mirror, holding up hope, holding up love, holding up understanding and empathy. I think a lot of people don't get empathy when it comes to emotions in this
right,
world.
right.
They just don't get it modeled for them. And so much, we need co regulation. We need other people to help us regulate ourselves, to process, to make peace with things, and having community, even if that community is one person that truly understands, can make the difference between life and death for people, without a doubt.
I love that. I love that. Now, I want to go back to what you were talking about earlier, the health issues that you endured in your grief journey. But also before we close out the day, I wanted to tell people, because today is a very special day. You've had a week of something that transpired, but we'll get into that because I want people to understand, like your vulnerability that you're having right now, your braveness to come on this show today, because there has been some life-changing moments that's happened recently. Let's talk about the health issues, right? Why do you think it's hard for people to understand that we carry grief in the different parts of our organs in our bodies, which contributes to the health elements that we sometimes develop?
I think the studies that are coming out now, I think of the work of Peter Levine and Bessel van der Kolk in particular, that just show us that the saying is the issues in your tissues. And I love that because it's so true.
Mm,
We hold on to it, and you don't just hold on to it in our hearts metaphorically, we hold on to it literally in our bodies. If you think about emotions as being energy in motion, if you're not allowing them the motion, then where's that energy going? It's going inward. It's going to be
right,
held on. It's going to be held in our bodies and in our energetic field. And we're going to have repercussions for that. I can't, I wouldn't possibly ever say that everybody's fibromyalgia is repressed emotions. But for me, it was. It absolutely was. Because as I chipped away at it, as I started to express and go back and look at some old wounds as they were ready to come up, I got better. And I got better and better and better. And now I would honestly say it's in remission. And if I do have a day when the fibromyalgia flares, I know to look back like, okay, what have I not processed? What am I holding on to? The mind body connection will never cease to amaze me. It's just unbelievable.
right. Right. And a lot of it is helping regulate your nervous system
Yeah.
throughout this process as well. Right. There's a connection I think people miss. The food that you eat, right? The people that you're around, especially if you're around a community of people who do not understand how to grieve, that's a communal shared grief, and people sometimes can feed off of one another, and not understanding, carrying those sort of things from other people can be very detrimental, not only to your mental mind state but your spiritual, emotional, as well as your nervous system. And that can, I've seen a lot of people go to the hospital and the doctor's like, well, we don't know what's going on, so we're just going to prescribe these medications to you and hope for the best, which ends up in turn causing more damage to those individuals, right? And I'm glad that you do the work that you do, because there's a lot of energy healing within inside of there. Which leads me to my next question. What do you feel about the yin and the yang of grief and chaos?
Mm, you're going for the deep questions. I love it. I think I love the idea of yin and yang because it's fluid. And I think when we say, oh, I'm balanced, it's a misnomer because balance is such an illusory concept, but equilibrium, that fluidity, that,
Mhm.
okay, I need to give more attention here right now. And so less there, but eventually I'm going to switch back and, you'll get more attention and you won't, is more speaking to the human experience, I think, rather than trying to, like, all right, I'm going to spend this much time doing this and this much time doing this. It's more a matter of fluidity. The chaos factor is when you've learned to be fluid, when you've learned to kind of get your sea legs no matter what's going on around you, you
Yes,
can you can buffer those times a little better. It won't be easy. Not
no,
to imply that, I'm so balanced and I can skate anything. No, 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 it's nothing like that. But it does get easier.
this is very true. Yeah, I mean, it does, but I want people to understand also that they're also going to have those waves that come, and those waves are only momentarily. But if you can be able to sit with those waves and extract the lessons that it's trying to give you, like the message that it's trying to pass on to you, you will realize that in those moments, and if you can allow yourself to be in that moment, but allow it to pass like the wind when that moment is past and go into the next moment, you will realize that the message that you're carrying it's not just for you, but it's for the next person that's come along.
Mm.
Life has a strange way of bringing people into your world with similar, going through something similar, that you may be able to give to them in a way that can not only change their mindset, but also set them upon a path of healing, and the beginning stages of finding their smile again.
Mm.
Right, Rachel, how you doing this morning, friend? So what do you think about that? Because I love the journey of grief. I love everything about it. I love listening to people. I love walking. I walk it every day as well, and a lot of people may not understand that, but this is who I am, and I've come to terms with that. Like this thing is who I am. It is honestly who I am. And but I also do understand the price of the gift that has been given to me. And a lot of people may not understand that, but I get it, and it's may not be for them to understand. And I'll talk a little bit about that to get your thoughts on it.
It's interesting what you mentioned so many things about how grief comes in waves. I think that is so true. I will never forget being in my local grocery store, reaching for something and realizing I was right near the favorite drink of my father and just breaking down in a grocery store, sobbing, hard, heaving sobs, not just a little trickle. No, not the pretty cry. I was, I was down there. And at the same time, I'm laughing at myself because this is what I signed up for. I'm like, all right, you want to be expressed right now? Then I guess that's what we're doing. And so I just sort of allow it to walk with me. But getting back to your question about walking the walk, walking the grief journey, I remember very vividly at one point in my adult life sitting down and making a choice. I'm like, you could be hard, you could be tough, you can be stoic the rest of your life, or you can choose to be soft and open and sometimes raw. It's your choice. And I remember it. It was one night and I remember it so vividly. And I made the choice. I'm like, well, I choose to be raw. I choose to walk the walk. I choose to be willing to be ripped open regularly rather than being hard and indifferent. I chose connection, I think ultimately is what it came down to. I chose the opportunity to connect with people on such a primal level versus being disconnected and hard and
Mm.
stoic. It's not me.
That I do understand, and I've talked to many people across the board on so many walks of life, especially going, those who are experiencing grief and those who have specialized in their field of grief, right? And the beautiful thing about it is that so many people have stepped up and said, "This is who I am." And we have the multitude of people that are death doulas. We have those that are, in the funeral homes. We have those that are bereavement counselors. We have those that are in somatic therapy, Reiki healing, like, those who specialize in miscarriages, and all the different facets of grief, such as disenfranchised, anticipatory. I met a young lady the other day, and I mean, anything with anticipatory grief, oh, she would rock your world, right? Said I love speaking with all of these individuals because and I think it's shared information, and for me, as being a man, especially being in this field, the one thing that I noticed when I first started, there wasn't too many men out here doing what I was doing. So I knew I had my work cut out for me, right? And something happened. Like I wanted to know more and more and more about it. And so I was just like, wow, let's explore this thing. Let's just see where it just takes me. What has been No, no, I'm gonna rephrase this question. When people often talk about mental health, trauma, addiction, and things like that, do you see a connection in all of these different things?
Absolutely. Our trauma, we act out our traumas in so many ways. And I think every single person I think that I've known that has had an addiction issue has had some degree of trauma in their life. I cannot think of a one that has not. Um, and we're not taught in this world, maybe in other countries, but certainly not here, how to process our emotions as they come up, how to handle trauma. Trauma is a body, mind, spirit thing. You can't just handle it in the mind. You've got to handle it in the body. You've got to handle it in your energy. It is absolutely a multifaceted entity that needs to be addressed on many levels. And I think that
Yes.
we do a really poor job of in socializing our children in terms of how to do that. So instead we have these people that are trying to pull themselves up by their bootstraps and move forward when they're carrying these huge wounds that they need help and they need
Mm,
support and they need compassion. And, so they self-medicate. And I see it all the time and I understand it, and it breaks my heart because you just want to go back in time and reach that in through the ethers and hug that poor child or young adult or even adult that is going through it. And instead they're here now and carrying that wound that has ostensibly scabbed over, but not really. And
mm.
then steps in people like you and I and others doing this work, just holding up that mirror like, no, 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 you're gonna sit, you're gonna be okay, you can breathe through it, but it's time to address these things.
I'm writing a message real quick. So, I just want to share my insights, and get your thoughts on this as well, because one of the things that I understood, especially going through the grief, I don't like referencing the stages of grief because there's so many different stages than just the five that people put up. And, I love to educate people on what those five stages of grief actually was written for, right? When Kubler-Rossi wrote those. And, one thing I want people to understand is that the five stages of grief was actually meant for those who was going through terminal illness, cancer patients, and it was their experiences. It wasn't meant for those who had experienced loss for the most part. Now, those are great pillars, and then once you can understand the pillars of grief, you can add in between, like the stage of anger, right? So many different avenues that you can go down to redefine what anger looks like to you. But also, if you understand the language and who is actually experiencing the anger, it gives you a deeper understanding of how to approach those individuals. Example, when most men are going through loss or hurt and things like that, anger is our go-to. What does that tell the next individual? This is how men cry. So if you understand that this is how men cry, then you can then turn around and have a different approach and how you can sit with that individual. And a part of that is understanding how to create an atmosphere for men to be vulnerable, but also understand that there's going to be boundaries. Words do mean something when it comes down to a man who is hurting. So learning how to navigate that. I love being able to educate other individuals. And now before I go on, I have another comment over here on Instagram. Coach Christine 42 says trauma lives within us, so we sit with all the effects of it, learning to let it be, not go into the story, but to deal with it. Yes, I know. I want to add to what you just said because you're absolutely right. Now, one thing, and Michelle, please let me know what you think about this. Because maybe I just have a different way of looking at it. It's not really learning how to deal with it. It's learning how to experience it, right? Um, because in order to deal with the trauma, you first have to pinpoint where it came from. So, we have a lot of people out here that have gone through narcissistic abuse. We have childhood abuse. We have, verbal, mental, emotional abuse that people have dealt with. And when it happens as a child and we carry it over into adulthood, we don't understand, it makes us who we are, right? Or defines, not makes, I'm not gonna say makes us who we are, but it defines our actions in those moments as moving forward because we tend to seek out those things that have hurt us, right? And other people. And a lot of times, what happens is that that's a victim's mentality. Once we begin to seek out those things, we can always have an excuse to justify our actions of saying, oh, this person did this. You ever talk? And I want to get your thoughts on that before I make my next statement.
Oh, I absolutely agree. There was one point in my healing journey when I was really pulling apart a lot of trauma and and maladaptations that I had as a result. And I remember vividly thinking, like, who am I? Am I just a series of maladaptations? Like, under all that, who am I? And it's so right. We get wounded and we like turn from it, and we find ways to not feel that pain, and then that's the maladaptation that you're then going to be dealing with until you are willing to turn and feel that pain again. It is a journey. It is a journey. And I think that if we could look at people with more compassion when we see them acting out, and it's hard in the moment, especially with anger, especially if it's directed at you. But if you can step aside, as you were saying, like, all right, is this person crying? Really? Is this not anger? Is this really pain? You know, we could really impact each other in such a positive way.
Yes, I definitely agree with that. Um, a lot of times too, I'm glad that you brought that up because a lot of times what happens, here's where it gets real tricky for people. People are quick to judge those that are in active addiction. They tend to judge people who are struggling in their mental health because they don't see the connection in it. One thing that grief has allowed me to do is to see within that right there and have a deep embedded sense of empathy for those individuals, right? To say, hey, I see you. Not only do I see, because when you can actually say that you see a person, you see what they're hiding from, and and it leads to a couple quotes um, that I've run across here lately, and one of them was, and I've people have heard me say this before, and it still reigns true to this day. I had a conversation with someone the other day, and they expressed their fears, and if they're listening right now, they know that we had a really really good deep talk about this. But the quote says, my biggest fear is that when you look into my eyes, you see me the way that I see myself, right? And most
Oops.
people, oh no, you're good. You're good. Can you see
I
me?
actually can't hear you for some reason.
Oh no.
Oh no. Hmm. I can't hear you.
Oh no. Can you hear me now?
um,
Check your settings.
Not sure what to do.
Hold
Do you want me
on.
to leave and come back?
Yeah, go ahead, leave and come back. Yeah. So as we wait for her to come come back, with that quote I just said, people leave your thoughts on this. But I think a lot of times what people do in situations is that we tend to hide what's truly going on with us. And that quote, I really, to this day, I still love that quote, you know. And, again, if you didn't hear me the first time, I'm going to repeat it. The biggest fear that most people have when they're going through active grief or pain is, um, is a person seeing them the way that they see themselves. Michelle, can you hear me?
I can hear you now.
Awesome, awesome. See, that's all you had. That's all we need to do is just jump off and jump back on. But you're back. So I just repeated a quote to everyone. And anyone who has any thoughts on that, please let me know. And I pose that question to you: how true is that statement?
I didn't hear it. I could just hear you now.
Okay. The quote is, my biggest fear is that when you look into my eyes, is that you see me the way that I see myself.
Mm,
That was written from someone who had not only experienced deep grief, but trauma and mental health abuse. They had lived their whole entire life surviving in the world, and it came from a young lady. Came from a young lady, and her biggest fear was that people would see that she was afraid.
mm. Oh, that breaks my heart. I believe, yeah, I can definitely see where that would be the biggest fear of somebody, looking in your eyes and confirming all those fears you have about who you are. I think it's
Mhm.
so important when we are in these scenes, and when we are able to be that other person, that we hold up that mirror of love and potential. And when I look at someone who's hurting, I don't see the maladaptation. I think, like you, I have a deeper empathy that just comes from what I've been through. I see who they can be. I see who they are at their core, which is so much more beautiful than a lot of times than what they're seeing themselves. I think,
Mhm.
the brain gets us, it has a negative bias. It just does. It's a biological thing. And we tend to apply that to ourselves. We are so hard on ourselves, and we see ourselves as I think over time, perhaps deserving of the traumas that have happened to us. We start getting all mixed up and all confused, and having someone that can stand there and be like, no, 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 you are a being of love. You are a being of light. You are a being of source energy is so powerful and so important and integral in the healing journey.
Yes, I'm right there with you. Um, And Coach Christine 42 says, "Thank you both so much. I am glad I was able to be here. A great statement. Wearing masks to protect ourselves." Yes, Michelle, totally agree. So yeah, we have we got a lot of great people that have been tuning in today and things like that. And keep them coming, guys. Keep them coming. Any questions that you guys have about the conversations that we have to either myself or Michelle, you know, put them in the comment section. You know what I'm saying? We're answering them as we go. Hopefully you guys are enjoying the conversation as well. And so now here's where I just want to go just a little bit deeper into the concept of um, understanding the price of being someone who's in grief.
Mm. I often say the one thing that we don't talk about a lot of in our grief discussions is the rawness that comes. You are raw. You are flayed open and raw. I remember after my stepdad, he was my stepdad for 40 years, so very dear to my heart person. When he died, like even going in public was painful. Like it hurt. I'm like, I don't want to be around other people's energy. I am too raw right now. I'm too splayed open. And I think that that is a price. And we don't give ourselves the space to grieve in that. Like, you know
Mhm.
what? If you're raw today, then, maybe today's not the day to go food shopping. Maybe today's the day to order food in, whatever you need. We don't see our needs as viable, as valuable, as um, valid. We see them, as this thing that's annoying us, like, ah, I'm raw today and I can't go out, and that's a real pain. Instead of, wow, my grief is right at the fore today. How can I nurture this? How can I sit
Mhm.
with it? How can I care for myself in a loving way? I think it is a price. It is a price you pay. There are moments that it's very hard in the journey. I mean, it's heartbreaking in the grief journey. There are moments that will rip you open, but they're just moments, and you can breathe through them. You can get through them. You can get on the other side of it. And if you are willing to walk through that field of grief, that field of pain, when you're on the other side, you're able to heal in a much healthier way. I think of it like any other wound. Like if you keep picking at it, it's not going to heal. But if you don't give it the proper treatment, it's not going to heal right. It's the
Right.
difference between having a scar and not.
Mm. Yes, I totally agree. Totally agree. And one of the things I don't want to add to that because there's so many other prices that come along with that, but I want to touch on one that sometimes people don't understand. And I've been around grief now for 6 years, and it feels like I've been doing it 120 years. And I'll answer. No, I'm actually doing them on this channel. So I'll be, what I'm saying, if you go back in, you can see that I have more set up for the day and things like that. And before I make my statement, Coach Christine 42 says, healing the inner child after serial abuse. Ooh, that's deep. I have been on that healing journey for decades. Grief was deep there. Loss of innocence. Ooh,
Mm.
that is. That is deep. Oh, we about to dive into that one because before I make my statement, I want to talk about that because that is something that most people do not talk about. That inner child that you have inside of you is screaming for help, and a lot of times it just wants to be nurtured and
Yeah.
cared for and loved on and told that everything is going to be okay. And what happens is that we we tend to neglect that when we get older because we do things to try to keep ourselves safe. Sexual abuse. I, I, well, it can go hand in hand. Serial abuse, sexual abuse. I think they both go kind of hand in hand because when a person is used to being abused, it does become it becomes something that happens over and over and over again, and it's not anyone else's fault. Um, and the world is just full of people who are capable of doing bad things to other people. I learned that lesson the hard way when I was a child too. Especially being a survivor of childhood molestation myself. And one of the things that I had to do, and I taught myself a trick, is that once I got to a point in life, because I was tired of the violence, I was tired of me being violent, right? And it was just one of those things. I said, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to be this way. But it also took me having my son to where I wanted to change that. I wanted to learn how to control it because before him, I had no control over it. If you tried anything with me, I just beat you up. You know.
I lost the audio again. I don't know what is going on here. I will be right
Oh,
back.
that's okay. Come on back. So yeah, that is one of the things that I had to learn when I was a kid was um, nurturing my inner child, going back to the young boy that I was, and pretty much bringing him to walking with him into adulthood. And I did that through dreams. I did that through learning how to dream backwards because I wanted to. I know I could see again. Again, I could. You're absolutely right. And so one of the things that I did learn or teach myself was to dream backwards in my healing journey because I didn't understand it, but I knew it made sense to me. And for those who don't understand what that means, it's that really honestly asking yourself, where did this start? Right. And I wanted to know. I wanted to know why I was the way that I was, why I was so used to surviving, why I was so used to being alone, why I was so used to, I was just very used to not letting people within my life. Right. And that's how I learned how to dream backwards because I didn't want that anymore. But also, I wanted to be a father. I wanted to be a good man, right? And so that was part of it. I didn't understand it now, but I mean, I didn't understand it then, but I understand that was an integral part of under me actually beginning to scratch the surfaces of what it actually looked like to grieve
Mhm.
properly, right, and begin the healing process. And so there was a lot to unpack. But also, understanding, like when I was an alcoholic, why did I pick up alcohol? Why did I not care about a lot of things like that? Now, if you ask me nowadays, it's not worth it. It's I mean, it's still a part of me, right? And I think that's part of me saying that I'm a good man. I'm not a perfect man, but I'm a good man. And what I mean by that is that I'm capable of protecting those that I care about,
Mhm.
right? And so, and good people, not just men, but women as well. Good people have learned how to control the monster inside of them. Something that Jordan Peterson said, and it reigns true to this day. You have to become a monster, and then you have to learn how to control it. Being someone in the grief field, I find that that is a very prominent statement in this journey as well, right? And what I mean by that, the monster inside of you, when you go into people's spaces, will spread out to protect the person that you're with in that moment from anything that could come in and take away from that.
Sorry, I'm having technical problems. I apologize.
That's okay. These things happen. These things happen. But what are your thoughts on that, Michelle?
Oh, that is a multi-layered thing. Healing, going back in time and healing that inner child is some of the heaviest, hardest work I have ever done.
Mm,
Um, learning to reparent and be the person I needed at that time. Um, yeah, and you have to truly get in touch with who do you want to be? Who are you at your most exalted, most perfect, most envisioned self, and really channel that person into the here and now, and then
mm,
use that person to reparent that inner child.
I like that. I like that. You know, when we was talking earlier, I was started thinking about one of the prices of grief that I've had to endure that a lot of people really may not understand. One of them is everybody expects you to be the strong person, right? Uh-oh. She Michelle keep bouncing out on me. We're gonna have to talk about this, Michelle. No, hopefully she'll be right back. But one of the things that I learned about grief was that there's a sort of not only connectiveness but emptiness that comes along with that to be effective in what we do. Because one of the prices are when you carry other people's grief, it can weigh on you if you do not understand how to release that from other people. Because when you go into people's spaces, they expect you, or yeah, let's just put it away. They do expect you to carry that along with them. And then others that don't fully understand, it still expects you to be the person that they need you to be. So it's a multitude of layers or directions that people will pull you in and not really understand that sometimes you may need time to decompress or to process what's going on. And one of the things I was talking about, Michelle, I was explaining one of the prices of Michelle. Um, so when she comes back, I'll finish talking with her. But people, please put your questions and comments in the comment section. I think she's working on the phone right now, and so these things do happen. And so yeah, we're gonna keep it rolling. We're gonna keep it rolling. Oh yes, yes. Honestly, Coach Christine, you're absolutely right. Saying one of the things as a coach myself, I do find that when we're in this work and we go, if you're anything like me, I go 24 hours a day. That's the way that I've always moved. Because again, I don't know if you heard me earlier, I don't ever want to miss the opportunity to be of service to other people. And sometimes that comes with a price of not being able to be there for other people, and things like that because of my commitment to what I said that I was going to do. But yes, I'm right there with you. One of the things that we have to do is self care. One of the other things that people don't understand, when I'm reading from Instagram, so I'm live on Instagram as well, and I'm live on LinkedIn, Rumble, Facebook as well. I know. I wish I could, but I'm on StreamYard, so I can't get them over. See, it won't let it. It's connected on StreamYard, but the comments won't appear over here. I wish there was a way I can connect them over there. That's part of it. You know what I'm saying? Sleep deprived, being sleep deprived in this thing is part of it. Have you? What is? What are some of the things that you notice with other grief practitioners or trauma-informed coaches or those who deal with those individuals? And trigger warning when I say this word, suicide intervention. What are some of what is some of the commonalities that you see within us, um, that we carry with us on a day-to-day basis, or that appear over a period of time?
I think again that deep empathy. I think that ability to see past the wounding into the heart. I think that that is the gift that is so essential, and it can be honed over time. I don't think I was
Mm,
born this way. I think it was shaped through a series of experiences. Perhaps I was born a little more empathetic than ever, but than others. But the depth that comes through life and through
mhm,
training and through commitment. So I think that ability to kind of see past and see the hold the vision for the person when they can't hold it for themselves. I think that's
mm.
another key el- um, element that we have to have.
Mhm. I love that. I definitely love that because there's a connection that goes on there that people don't really see. But one of the things that now I've met one other guy like myself, um, and a friend of mine brought him to my attention, and she said, "Why is his eyes that way?" And I saw before and after pictures of this guy, and what I realized, I told her, I said, it's because he sees grief in a different way than you do. Like, so his eyes are adjusting to the reality, the true reality of what he sees in people. And when we get to a certain point of understanding the deep embedded connectedness within the universe and how far and vast it reaches, it has a tendency of changing everything about you as you begin to grow and manifest into the world. And and I don't think people understand that there's this thing that's always reigned true when we talk about grief. We say grief is such a lonely road, right? But no one ever talks about the ones who do the work, how lonely the road is for us,
Mm,
right? Because that I think that is one of the prices that we pay as
yeah,
well. Grief is lonely. And when you're constantly learning and not limited on what you want to experience or learn in grief, grief will hold true to that.
yeah.
It will always hold true to that. Now, before we get, yes, needing to have personal boundaries. I was speaking daily with a friend who was suicidal. She needs to know I found it hard. I love her and want her to stay. And yes, she is still here. Well, thank you for the work that you do, Coach Christine. That's, again, we're all in this together, and you already know we're connected in this thing. And, we'll always be supportive of one another. You already know this. That's one thing that I do love about the work that I do is that I'm able to support those that are in this field on the level, um, without any sort of expectation. But I want to be able to shine the light on everybody that's doing this, right? Because together we make that change. So now, what poses me the next, my next question. Yeah, my next question. So you've just now experienced something this last week. Would you do you, if and you don't have to talk about it if you don't want to, you know what I'm saying? Because I know that it can be very emotional right now. And so just let me know if you want to talk about it. But something transpired this week for you that changed a lot of things, didn't it?
Yes, a dear friend of mine was murdered a little over a year ago, and the sentencing for her killer was this week, and we don't feel that justice was done. He's going to be eligible for parole in 5 years, and we're left
Mm,
heartbroken. So there was a lot of anger that came up this week, a lot of rage, righteous rage, is what I called it. It was at the injustice of it all. And so that was a big piece of it. And it kind of stirred up some other pockets of grief that I had to deal with. But again, what was left was the love. The rage was for love. Everything came back to the love, and that helped me work through it.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that. Thank you for sharing that. And that's why I always ask permission if it's okay to talk about it and things like that, because I know a really good friend of mine, her son was murdered, and her son's killer is still walking around the neighborhood. There was no justice. They justified it and everything else. And so, but now she is out here doing some amazing work. So big, huge shout out to Hope Rieger, from Grief to Hope. And she's out here doing some amazing things in remembrance of her son who was murdered. I got another buddy of mine. Now this is where it gets real crazy. Another buddy of mine, his wife and two children were killed by a serial killer. Uh-oh, you still there? Come on back, Michelle.
I'm here. Sorry.
That's
My
okay.
computer is in the shop, and so I'm stuck on my phone, and weird things keep happening.
That's okay, and I and definitely understand that as well. And so and that's where, because the bandwidth that StreamYard uses, can be very taxing on a person's phone. And so I'm not going to keep you too much longer, but I was just sharing some of the experiences, of people who have gone through something similar, and the depthness of what this thing called grief really, really entails, right? Because people never really think about that, or sometimes people live in a world where they don't think that these things happen, or bad people don't exist. And I'll be the first one to tell them, just because you think that it doesn't exist, until it happens to you, it will change your whole perspective. So, not saying live your life in fear, but live your life with the understanding that there are people out here that are really capable of doing some really messed up stuff to you. So you have to be mindful, especially with the young women out there that may be a little bit reckless in the things that they do. Be mindful of your situations. Surround yourself with people that you're comfortable with, because if not, it'd be that one time that you don't pay attention. Just the other day, and it's a huge thing going around. A young man and his daughter was murdered, right, by two babies, two 15-year-olds. They killed this man and his young baby at a car wash, and no one. Okay, okay, Christine. Thank you. Thank you for everything. Thank you for tuning in as well. And hopefully, I got two more coming today as well. So if you get a chance to come in and and experience those as well, always thank you for your support, love, and your comments as well. Thank you for all of that. But this man and his 5-year-old daughter was murdered at a car wash last week, and that child's birthday was the day.
Mm.
And I often, I sat around as this story is unfolding, realizing that there was two babies that killed them, two 15-year-old boys. And I put a post up saying, talking to the young dudes out here in the streets today. Look, I cannot fault somebody for what they do, because I am not perfect whatsoever. I was in the game for over 24 years. So I kind of, I don't condone violence on kids or anything like that. And but I will say, being at the age that I am now, one thing I do talk to the young guys out there today: it's time to put down the guns. It's time to stop hurting your families. It's time to start hurting other people's family. And with the state of the world that we're in today, the world is actively grieving, deep grief. It's time to make a change. It's really time to make a change. And when you got individuals like Michelle and Coach Christine and so many other people, the deaf doulas, we got my friend Anna Mae over here, and out here doing the work over here. The one thing I do, before I get your thoughts on this, I would like to issue a challenge to all the grief workers out there: find a way to work together, find a way to collaborate, find a way to where we can spread across the world and do exactly what we're called to do, because we're needed, And I don't know if anybody knows this now or anything, but this is what we're being called to do for these moments that we're going through right now. So we have to find a way to come together. We have to find a way to do bigger things and be the change that we want to see and offer the healing to the people out here in the world because they need us. All right. Um, but I want to get your thoughts on that, Michelle,
I
before.
agree. I think that, more people need to step up and start feeling their feelings and helping others and working together. I think there's, we can be, as a species, a little skeptical of each other. And I think maybe
Hmm.
meeting each other from a more open-hearted place would be lovely. And I think that,
Yes.
those of us in the heart-centric field are the ones to lead the way in that.
Yes. And now, before as we begin to wrap this up, right? First and foremost, I want to say thank you for this beautiful conversation. I would love to do this again.
Yes,
Whenever you
when
get
I'm
a
on my
chance.
computer.
Yeah, when you're on your computer, like even now, like this is live and raw, uncut. So these things do happen. You know what I'm saying? I'm sure the audience all understand these things, right? Technology is not perfect, but it's good when it works, right? But we still make it work, right? We still have great conversations with people. And for everyone out there, before we wrap this up, I want to say go over and support Michelle. Her information is in the YouTube channel. Reach out to her, and especially if you're looking for support or anything like that, let her know that Tony sent you. And you guys already know you guys going to be taken care of. One thing that this podcast do is not only help you understand the people that are out here doing the work, but helps you make an informed decision about the support that you need and understand that the people who are out here giving that support is going to treat you right. So, make sure you go over there and show them that support. Um, but Michelle, before I let you go, tell people how they can find you.
I'm on Facebook, Michelle Manley. Easy enough to find. I know there's a lot of us, but it's my face, so that helps. And I'm also michellemmmanley.com/home will bring you to my website.
I love that. Now, one other question for you. If you had a superpower, what would it be?
I think it's traveling. Traveling, traveling, traveling. If I could get from point A to point B in a split moment, yeah, that would be for me.
I love that. I love that. Now, with that being said, everyone, if it's your first time tuning in, do me a favor, head on over to that YouTube channel, support the channel, give me a subscribe, hit that bell notification so you'll be notified every time that we drop a new episode. But most importantly, if you know anyone who could benefit from the conversations that we have, please share it along with them. This channel is growing, and oh, Rachel's good people. She helped me design the logo that you see back there, and she's out here doing some amazing work. And like most people I know, she's freaking amazing. She's a rock star out there, and guys needs some work done, go check her out, please. And so, but for everyone else, we're going to see you guys in the next one. And we're going to take a short break. I'll be back in a couple of hours with two more episodes. So you guys come back in and tune in for those as well. And for the most part, guys, I want to say thank you for allowing me to keep bringing these conversations to you guys. Thank you for your support. I love you. And thank you guys for keep doing what you do and allow me to keep doing what I do. Now, with that being said, guys, we're going to see you in the next episode. We're out. Peace.
Goodbye. Thank you.